Welcome to the Animation Academy. My name is Josh. I'm a Disney artist here, and we're going to be drawing Oswald the Lucky Rabbit in this class. Who is a fan of this character? Okay, and are there any of you out there who are like, who is that? And that's fair if you're in that camp. Okay, all right, we'll talk about Oswald in just a moment. He's a really unique Disney character for so many reasons. Before we get started with Oswald, a few things to go over. On your way in, you met Katie. Everyone say hi, Katie. Hi. Katie's also a Disney artist, and she's here to help us out during the class. If you need anything, just raise your hand. She is also showing you where to exit. Take a look at the doors you entered through. Any will lead out. The one she opened on the far right, that is the easiest door to open. Now, are any of you first-timers here? Never been here before? All right, lots of you. If you're new, take a look at your pencils. We're missing something pretty important. What are we missing? No erasers, right? This is done on purpose. This is a rough sketch class, which means the style of drawing we're doing here really doesn't need erasers because we're not aiming for perfection. What we're doing is what you saw in the facade of our building or in the hallways, sketchy animator-style drawings that are purposefully unfinished. They're just kind of the idea of a character on your page. But again, it's okay to make mistakes. Even professional animators will make mistakes when they're sketching. So start off very light and loose, and then later we'll go back and darken in our sketch. Now, we'll definitely get more into Oswald during the class, but like the 10-second preview, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, Oswald is that little character up there playing music. He is the character that was created before Mickey Mouse, and Walt Disney losing the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is what really pushed him to create Mickey Mouse. So again, kind of an obscure character, but without him, there is no Mickey Mouse and there is no Disney company. So really important character. Are we ready to draw Oswald? Yeah. All right, let's get started. Oswald starts off with a circle. I would place this towards the bottom right of your page because his ears are going to stick out towards the top left. And I would say start with a circle about the size of a baseball or an orange here. Keep it light, keep it sketchy, does not need to look perfect. And I actually recommend you keep drawing over and over again until you get a shape you like. Now, anytime that you draw characters, you want to place construction lines down. For Oswald here, I'm going to place in this curved line going from top to bottom about 2/3 of the way in. Roughly about halfway up is where we're going to place in Oswald's eye line, and I'm going to place in a curved line going from side to side here. Now, as you can see from the plush that I pointed out, he looks a lot like Mickey Mouse. This character was really prominent around 1927. And so his design is very, very reminiscent of 1920s animation, what we call rubber hose animation, where characters move very fluidly and they're in black and white because characters did not start getting animated in color until the 1930s with Technicolor. So I've started with this little jelly bean for his nose, this little oval that gets placed basically where those lines are meeting, and then it extends to the outside of his face here. This is also the first feature that I'm locking in, which is what you can see that I'm doing now, where I darken in my lines. This is something we're going to do throughout the class, but only when we like something we've drawn. So if anything looks off to you, if you made a mistake on something, those things, don't lock those in. Leave them light, and they will fade into the background as you go. I also like to shade in Oswald's nose. I think it gives the sketch a little bit more contrast, but that is definitely up to you. That is a personal choice. Now, again, his design is very 1920s, including the shape of his smile. That's something we see on Mickey and Minnie. I'm going to pull from basically where the construction line is, and I'm creating this really wide side smirk that pulls down to underneath the nose. As we know at this point, we'll go back and lock this in. But when characters in animation smile really big, we usually do two things. One is we place in a smile line, which is a little rainbow or crease at the end of the smile, showing that the cheek's being pushed up. And the other thing we do is we give our characters something known as a laughing smile, which, as the name suggests, it makes it look like the character is laughing or talking or singing, because we're giving them an open mouth expression instead of a closed mouth smirk. Now, as I mentioned, this character was a very popular character in the 1920s. Before Mickey, he was like the Mickey Mouse. Like, he was a popular animated character. And Walt Disney was one of the many animators and individuals responsible for this character's success. This character was basically synonymous with Walt Disney at the time. But at the time, he actually did not technically own the rights to the character, despite his influence on the character. And a businessman known as Charles Mintz was a little bit shady, and he found a way to take this character out from underneath Walt Disney, as well as take all of his animators except one, a man named Ub Iwerks. And Ub Iwerks and Walt Disney, of course, left this company, and they headed out to California. And as the legend goes, on the train to California, they sketched out Mickey Mouse for the first time. And Mickey Mouse was really just kind of a symbol in a way too, because he was supposed to be really the first Disney-owned Disney character. It was like the symbol of independence. Like he was never going to have one of his characters owned by someone else again. So again, it's really interesting because Oswald is a character that's kind of faded into obscurity, but everybody on the planet knows Mickey Mouse, right? But without Oswald, there's no Mickey. It's kind of funny to me. I think I saw a hand. Did you have a question in the first row? Yeah, you're right. Universal. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to bring up Universal a little bit later. And I can tell you're an Oswald super fan. You got Oswald gear head to toe. I love it. So now I'm like nervous you're going to be fact checking me. But to be fair, it'll keep me on my toes. Fair enough. Now, yeah, you're totally right. Universal. And let's just get into that. Speaking of Universal, this character again was owned by Universal for decades. I think like at least 80 plus years. And you might be wondering, if this character belongs to Universal, how are we drawing them right now? Because we're not drawing Shrek, we're not drawing any other characters from Universal. And the reason is because in the early 2000s, when Bob Iger took over as CEO, on his list of things he wanted to accomplish at Disney, he wanted to get Oswald back, because he recognized the significance of this character and the history involved. And so we had a trade with Universal to get this character back. And what we traded was something pretty funny and maybe like unexpected. Does anybody know what we traded to get Oswald?
Al Michaels.
Yeah, churro, great guess. We're like, we have goods, the Disneyland churros. No, but somebody said it. It's Al Michaels, a real person, a sports newscaster. We traded him for this cartoon rabbit and all the characters. Yeah, and all the characters that come with him. So his wife, Hortensia, if you didn't know this, Oswald is married to a little cat named Hortensia. She's really cute. She looks like how Minnie Mouse used to look, but of course it's just cat ears instead of mouse ears. And so again, yeah, we traded for this character, but it left Disney in this interesting spot of like, how do you reintroduce a character that's been gone for so long? And I bet my friend in the first row knows how we introduced him. Do you know? It was a video game. Do you remember what it was called?
Oh yeah. That painting one.
If you don't know, it's okay. Yeah, you know it. Epic Mickey, right? I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. Epic Mickey, the Power of Two. And this is how the Disney company chose to reintroduce people to this character who had been gone so long. And that's, to me, really interesting because they didn't go with like a movie or a show or a big documentary. They went with a video game. And that's how a lot of people became Oswald fans. We're about halfway done with Oswald. I want to check in with you. Are we having fun so far? Okay, good. We're having fun. Just make sure you're caught up. So I would say like the outline of Oswald's head, that bottom lip I drew in, those things should be locked in because we're going to add in some new features. Now, when we got him back from Universal, we decided to revert back to his 1920s look because he had gone through some changes at the time. And so his eyes are kind of like a surfboard shape. That's what we see on like Mickey and Minnie back in the 1920s, just these like tall, dark ovals. Now, something I think is really funny is Pixar, like, maybe not so, like, obviously threw shade at Charles Mintz, the man who took this character from Disney, because in the film Up, there is a villain. Does anybody know what his name is? Charles Muntz. Yeah, and I'm like, that's a little similar, especially as like an animation studio. I'm like, I'm sure they know the history of Oswald. So I don't know if that's confirmed, but I'm like, that seems a little too similar to be a coincidence. Pixar, but I appreciate it. Now, for the eyes, we'll go back and we'll make these the darkest feature on our page, so that way it really pulls focus to Oswald's eyes and brings him to life here. Now, what a lot of people don't realize, especially people who aren't familiar with this character, is he's actually the first character you walk by when you walk through the gates of California Adventure. Because on your, I think it's like, coming in, it's on your left, there's a gas station off to the side that's themed around Oswald. And there's always like Oswald merch over there, Oswald signage. And when this character comes out to visit, that is usually where he'll come out, around that area, or somewhere on Buena Vista Street. And so a lot of people walk right by this character and don't even realize who it is. Now, once you've drawn in the eyes, the last feature on Oswald's face is known as a character mask, and it's like this framing device that goes around his face. Mickey's got the same thing. I start by pulling up from the side of the circle, and I'm curling over the smile line to create a cheek for Oswald. And then I'm going to place in an arch, pulling from the cheek, and it's going to land on that center construction line. So it's going right over that first eye. Then finally, you'll pull from that arch, and you'll start a third one, but it'll get cut off by the edge. Now, this framing device was really popular in the 20s, which is why Mickey and Minnie also have it, because all animation was still being done in black and white ink. So this was a really effective way for animators to frame a character's face, and then they could fill in the rest of the character's body, clothing, or hair with ink, and we would never lose their facial expression. And so we saw this all over the decade with other characters as well. And this wasn't just a Disney thing. We saw this on Felix the Cat as well, as even Betty Boop. Her hair is a pretty good equivalent for like a human character mask. But since we're drawing Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, what do you think we're missing on his head? His ears, right? I'm going to just kind of show you where to place them, and then you can have fun with any pose you want. This character being from that rubber hose era, he's animated in a really, again, fluid way, so you could do like crazy poses with his ears if you wanted. I placed in one line above his cheek, and then I place in one basically between the eyes. That's where I like to place them. And the shape of these ears are going to be kind of like baseball bats, because they have this really wide round end, and then as they get closer to his face, they get narrower just like a baseball bat. So I kind of lightly block mine out, and then later I'll go back and darken them in. Now, since this character's debut, he's not seen all the time, but we definitely have gotten our cameos of Oswald since we reacquired him. For one, those Mickey shorts that you see on Disney+. Every once in a while, Oswald will resurface in those. He was also apparently in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I haven't seen that movie. Yeah, but I've been told by all the artists here that he is in that movie in a small cameo. So if you are a fan of Oswald or if you've seen that movie, you got to see if you can spot him. And then one of the ones that I'm familiar with is when Frozen came out in theaters, there was a short film that played before called Get a Horse. And this short film featured a bunch of classic Disney characters jumping through the screen, and as they do, they switch between black and white 2D animation and 3D color. And Oswald is one of the characters featured in that short. And I'm sure a lot of us saw Frozen in theaters based on the box office. So I'm sure a lot of you also saw him then. But once you've drawn in those ears, that is the final step for drawing Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Anything else you want to add is extra credit, but make sure to sign your name nice and proud. You've drawn your very own Oswald.